Hello everyone, we are here to read for the week commencing 19th of January through to the 25th of same said month. I am as usual using the Hexen 5, we're going to use the Hexen 2 to clarify. I've done the reading ahead for the messages from Aquarius season, right? The theme of the season, if you will, the all that sort of thing. And I attempted in a coherent way and probably failed dramatically to explain at the beginning of that all of the astrology that's occurring during the month of January. And I might actually cut that from the video and then try and re-record it because it's so fucking big, like all of it this year. It's kind of difficult to break down, and you know, it's not so much what I do. It informs what I do, but it's not really what I do. And I don't know if it's perhaps better left for for others who are better at this sort of thing to tell you about, right? But just looking ahead at this week here, I just printed this off AstroSeek, and AstroSeek, and I just picked a random day in the week of the 19th to the 25th. And we've got this little chart here. It doesn't look like there's an awful lot going on, except, you know, when you consider that we've got this cluster of planets here in Aquarius, all of whom are making contact with Pluto as they move through, right? So these are all conjunct right here. We've got the Mercury, we have Mercury at 1 degree, the Sun at 1 degree, Pluto at 3 degrees, Venus at 5. We've got Mars in Capricorn, we're finishing up in Capricorn and getting ready to join the little party, which, will that happen before the end of the week? I think it probably will, right? So this is Wednesday the 21st of January, for example, right? We've got Moon in Pisces, North Node in there, obviously. Saturn and Neptune really starting to push towards the end of Pisces, ready for, you know, what happens in February and all that sort of stuff. But you look at this breakdown of transits that are actually ongoing during this week, it's kind of boggling because they're all clustered up so hard, right? So here we see we've got the Sun conjunct Mercury, Venus, Mars, sextiling Saturn, trining Uranus, sextiling Neptune, conjunct Pluto, right? That all going on simultaneously. The Moon is square Uranus. Mercury is in conjunction with Venus, Mars, sextile Saturn, trining Uranus, sextiling Neptune, conjunct Pluto. Venus is conjunct Mars, it's also conjunct Pluto. Mars is sextiling Saturn, trining Uranus, sextiling Neptune, in conjunction with Pluto. Saturn sextile Uranus, Saturn conjunction with Neptune, Uranus sextile Neptune, Uranus trine Pluto, Neptune sextile Pluto. Right, if we just take to there, these are all personal planets. This is all the stuff that's going on with the personal planets at the moment. When we leave aside these, more generational kind of things, you can see that there's a lot going on. And I think the point that I tried to make in the Aquarius season video was that nothing here is happening in a vacuum. Which is to say that, you know, none of these transits are really standalone on their own. They're all pointing towards a bigger picture. They are all in dialogue about the upcoming big picture, you know, whatever that is, that we will only really see as it starts to be revealed to us. Everything is being staged, everything is being put in place, right? And even though it looks fairly quiet to an untrained eye, perhaps, you know, all of this going on here, I mean, this is not even talking about Chiron, which is squaring the fuck out of personal planets, the Sun, the Moon, Sun, Mars and Jupiter, and Lilith is just so fucking busy over here doing all sorts of things. Like, the conversations are happening everywhere between all of the planets. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's an intensity to that we can't really overlook. I'm going to attempt not to go on a massive fucking rant about shall we say other people in the space, and specifically the astrological space. Let's go 5 and then 4, 3, do another big one, 2 and 1. Right. I understand when there is a predisposition for certain people to look to the obvious and try not to pay attention to the things that feel negative, right? I get that. I understand it. I do, however, feel like if you are in a position whereby you have a YouTube channel or you have some sort of platform, even if you don't, even if it's just your friendship group, right? I think it is... What do I think it is? It's giving toxic positivity when we try and pretend that this intensity is anything other than what it is, and that there may not be some, some deep complexity and some deep frustration, some deep difficulties, some deep challenges associated with this time, right? I'm already doing it. I'm a stop and a pull back. Nothing can be resolutely good. It can't, right? We deal with polarities down here, and so for every amount of good that there is, generally speaking, there's an equal and exact amount of not so good going on too. It is simply just the way of things, and the whole of this year is a reordering. Right now, however that looks, whatever that looks like, I think anybody who claims to tell you that they know what that looks like is quite simply lying to your fucking face. And whilst I understand the desire to keep everything calm and smooth and all that sort of thing, and I would like to see everybody keeping things, it's definitely going to be something over 2026 that is necessary. Can you stop for just long enough not to get swept up in the urgency of things? Right? I would definitely advocate for that. But sticking your head in the sand and pretending that this isn't going to be incredibly turbulent and incredibly disruptive essentially amounts to spiritual bypassing in my book, right? And we're not afraid of the dark stuff here. This is what we do. This is what we work with. We understand the importance of it in balance. And it might not feel particularly balanced this year. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, right? So the reason, if there were to be any, so I'm going to roll a tab while I'm talking to you, why I kind of push this could get very dark, this could get very bad, is simply to equip you with awareness moving forwards. We know we can get through all of this. Like, the training of the last 5 or 6 years, the shadow work, the long dark nights of the soul, the personal work that we have done here has trained us to deal with difficulty, to deal with complexity, to deal with our egos. It's a big one. And now get to a point where we can shine the light for others. Why? Because this year they will need it. So me being very frank and open with how I see this all going is not said to scare anyone, but to really underline how important all of your actions and your movements are this year, not just for you, but also for other people. The well-being of the collective does not rest on your shoulders, but I feel this is as big a time as any where being of service for those who are so predisposed really comes into its own. And this is not a year where we're nursing people through separations or divorces or, lost jobs or things like that. It's a year where we're nursing humanity through everything, including the consequences of being wedded to their own egos. Now that could be a pretty bumpy ride. That's all I'm saying. It could be a pretty bumpy ride. So, I don't even know why I kind of segued into that after saying that I wasn't going to say anything about it. But it bothers me. And I wonder if this is going to form part of the energies for this week, right? It bothers me when people sugarcoat shit. Don't fucking do that, right? I don't want people doing it when they're talking with me. I want to know the truth. Doesn't matter how hard I find the truth to deal with, I'd rather be dealing with the truth. Because I can always change, I can always adapt, I can always kind of what's the word? Assimilate this information, right? I've kind of like the walking embodiment of the Three of Swords at this point now. I want those swords. I want to know the truth about everything, right? So I'm working on the assumption that you all do too, which means I'm not going to pull my punches about anything. I am not going to avoid using certain words if I feel like they are relevant, and I'm certainly not going to say everything's just peachy, because it's not. It just fucking isn't, right? But does that mean that we shouldn't keep doing what we're doing? No, of course not. The world doesn't stop just because we find it difficult, right? Anyway, with that sort of random verbal side quest that I went on completed, let's have a look at the energies for this coming week. We have the Nine of Cups, we have the Moon, and we have the Nine of Pentacles. Interesting, because this does feel like it relates to everything that I was just shitting on about there. Why? Because we have two cards that represent our own individual management of something. We have a card that speaks to me of emotional regulation or a lack thereof, but also careful management of our resources, including our attention. Now, there's some fogginess in the middle of that because we have the Moon. What do we have at the bottom of the deck? We have the Wheel of Fortune. Look at that, post-truth. Well, if that isn't a fucking defining term for the period that we're in, I don't know. I know back in my day we used to call that lies, right? Post-truth society where truth doesn't really mean anything anymore. Like, what the fuck? Like, I really do subscribe to the notion that truth is the highest vibration of all. I really do. I don't believe it's love. I believe it is truth. And I think we can come to learn to love a truth even if it is paradigm shattering. Because it's real. And those of us who are wanting to live authentic lives are not walking around with the love and light and cucumber sandwiches and unicorns and pink balloons brigade. We're going like, well, sometimes shit's just really hard. Sometimes, you really have to earn your fucking stripes. I think that's what life is about. I am a Capricorn ascendant, right? So there is always that kind of Saturnian aspect to the way that I see things, right? And it's not about the eradication of hope at all. I want to make that clear too, because I feel like where there's so much fakery, where there's so much that is synthetic about our understanding of the world, or even just what we are spoon-fed, what we are given to digest spiritually, emotionally, fucking even practically, right? Materially, physically. That things like real connection and real information, real parameters of reality, they become increasingly difficult to put our fingers on. Now, this week we have 2 major arcana cards. I feel like, as I said, the moon distorts, cannot help but do that. It provides some level of illumination, but unless you are, shall I say, kind of tuned into the language of symbolism, then the moon can represent a kind of fogginess over the top, right? For me, the moon also represents the subconscious. It's that which we cannot directly shine a light on and look at. It's that which we cannot directly shine a light on and dialogue with, right? That would be very much the preserver of the sun. So it is water, so it is definitely emotion, but it's how much are the emotions fogging our ability to emotionally regulate? How much are our emotions fogging our idea of what our what we actually have to invest and how we marshal our resources, where we put them, right? What do we do with them? The fact that the Wheel of Fortune is at the bottom of the deck here feels to me, and I was hoping that it would be a little bit later into, well, sort of last week of January, that we were starting to see this shift of intensity, this gearing up, spooling up of the energies. But I think it's here, to be honest. The Wheel of Fortune represents the planet Jupiter, and so we have expansion. Right? We always have expansion with that. And yet, although we have this expansive energy which is creating more confusion, it's compelling us then to pay more attention to that which is within our control, because these things are not, these things are. So I'm flooded with the light for a change, because I've actually put the overhead light on, which I don't usually do, which is why we've got a bit of a glare on there. Sorry about that, but I don't know, I just felt like being lit up today. So let's get some clarifiers on these anyway. 3, 2. So for the 9 of Cups, Judgment. And the Knight of Swords. For the moon, we have the 8 of Swords, well, touche, and the Fool. And for the 9 of Pentacles, we have the Star and the Ace of Wands. I actually really like this combination of cards, although it's difficult. There's challenge here. I've got the Page of Cups at the bottom of the deck there. I don't know if you can see all of that well enough. Now we have additional fucking major arcana energy, right? We've got the Star here, Aquarius. The sun will be moving into the sign of Aquarius on Monday the 19th, right? So we start the week with a whole different vibe, shifting away from Capricorn and into this more, I think I described it in the Aquarius overview energy reading as just sort of complex and paradoxical, and unfortunately we have to accept that within the complex and paradoxical things tend to get really quite confusing. It's like I've used this example sometimes, and I don't know if it works well for you, but it encapsulates the feeling for me. It's that walking into a room full of mirrors, like at the end of Enter the Dragon, or a book that I read once by someone, Terry Pratchett maybe, or it might actually have been Neil Gaiman, I can't remember, but someone of that oeuvre anyway, trying to work out which was the real reflection and realising it's you in the middle of all of it, right? That sense of self now more important than ever, that focus of attention more important than ever, emotional regulation more important than ever. So we've got Judgment down here. Right? Now, traditionally, we talk about the Judgment card in terms of rebirth. We talk about it in terms of a kind of resurrection sometimes, right? Depending on which deck you're using, it's got a kind of slightly different timbre to it, right? The Judgment card can speak to life-changing decisions that are made. But here, with ethics tipped on its side, we've got this kind of question of what you stand for and how easily it is swayed by new information that's coming in. If you're on social media, like I really, if any of you are still left on there, I really would advise getting off it, because post-truth, like how much of anything that we're actually seeing, how much information that is being put out there is actually accurate, and how much of it affects where you are right now. Because with this ethics card, with this ethics on its side here, it feels like this 90-degree shift from what was, for hundreds of years, perhaps, a kind of consensus state that we all held about something being, good or bad, is really being flipped up and turned around. And it's difficult, I think, to work out what is under the weight of all the information that's coming through. The Knight of Swords is very busy. It's pushing information here, there, and everywhere. But the Knight of Swords' job is not to test the veracity of that. It is simply to transfer it from one head to another, right? I've talked about the Knight of Swords having a mimetic quality before, right? It just goes from head to head to head to head. And social media, for me, is definitely the vehicle through which all of that happens nowadays. And depending on the echo chamber that you're sitting in, you're going to find more and more things to be aggrieved about on the other side, right? There's a strong othering element to this Judgment card, where we sit in judgment of others, we sit in judgment of situations, we sit in judgment of things that are so fucking overwhelming that we cannot possibly comprehend the level of complexity in it, and yet we are being asked to take a side. We're being asked to support one country and not the other. Our nervous systems are being tweaked, turned up to 11 on everything, because we're being asked to emotionally engage. Now, I'm not saying that there are not things going on in the world that are patently wrong. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't in some way show your support for those who are having a bad time. But the weaponization of our civilization, I'm going to say broadly Western civilization's empathy and compassion, such that it becomes a constant nervous system activation. We're just fed things to be angry about. And in the process of becoming angry about those things, two things happen. We ourselves find ourselves sitting in fight or flight, not emotionally regulated. Fight or flight, always. They've done studies on people reading social media and seeing how certain things like cortisol spikes straight away, right? And the confirmation bias that everyone is subject to, right? And the algorithm of whatever you're looking at is paying attention to, has you being sucked deeper and deeper into all sorts of things, right? So you're sitting in fight or flight. Your judgment is compromised. But it's sowing further the seeds of division now. The second thing that happens there is that very real problems get lost in the noise. Because I'm not saying that everything that is happening is purely distractional. There are very real problems happening in the world. And some of those problems that are happening here, there, and everywhere are actually within at least our level of influence, if not our, our ability to control. But that gets lost in the noise as well. And to some extent, there is a groupthink going on, right? Well, you can't have tribalism and people devolving into, you know, smaller and smaller factions, seeing everybody else as the enemy without that kind of othering happening. And I find it distressing, but I also find it distressing when it means that real problems are not getting solved. So the question is, what is real? What is happening right now? What can you regulate around? You know, because if the internet went off tomorrow, if electricity went off tomorrow, we would all be very busy doing other things other than trying to have a look and see what's going on in a country, you know, fucking 1,500 miles away from us, or, you know, 5,000 miles away from us, whatever it is, right? Now, the moon here, the obfuscation that I'm talking about, the confusion that I'm talking about, the way in which social media and the news and media generally is kind of talking to you through symbolism, through the images that it's showing you, through the the very emotive language that it's using, right? It's imprinting on everyone this strong fear of being trapped, right? Being caught by something, right? And it's cultivating a sense of almost learned helplessness. Now, I think this is true even in the case of people whose nervous systems are turned up to a fucking 11 and are shouting about everything on the internet. Because it's taking you away from what is real, what is right in front of you, what is yours to control. You know, the Fool, generally speaking, is a good card. But there is no card in the tarot that is all good or all bad, right? I've said this before, the cards contain a polarity of their own. And whilst the Fool is generally welcome, the Fool is also the depiction of absolute peak chaos. And I still don't think we've reached peak chaos yet. It's like this constriction of the mind in the Eight of Swords and the absolute surreality of everything just apparently fucking imploding, and all of the confusion that's happening across the top. Now, you will know, if you've been with me for any length of time, that I love the Eight of Swords as a card. Probably quite an unpopular opinion, right? But I love it because the solution is right there with the problem depicted in the card. We know it's an 8, so we know it's about power. So all of the 8s in the minor arcana come to talk about reclamation. What is the way that we can reclaim our power in any given situation? It's certainly not getting up in our heads. And to some extent, it is not engaging swords-like with what the Knight of Swords is bringing along and depositing on our lap over and over again. Here's some new information, and some more, and some more, and some more. You know, there's no inherent criticism of Gemini here, but like I said, like Gemini's not looking for the truth. Gemini's looking for as much information as possible. This is what the Knight of Swords does. It gathers it all and it moves it from place to place, person to person, head to head, right? Now, we have Jupiter in Gemini with this card here. So there is no amount of information that's ever going to be enough. And in fact, the more information you have, the more it corrals you into that place where you feel completely helpless and hopeless. Remember, we've got Jupiter over here. We've got that expansive energy over there, right? And then we've got the absolute falling apart that the Fool can represent, right? Where it's like there's no fucking structure, there's no experience, there's no wisdom here. In fact, we have an expression of inexperience and lacking wisdom, right? We have sometimes the protection of the Fool. Like, what's their phrase? I've forgotten. It's like God looks after the children and the stupid, or the yeah, do you know what I mean, right? The innocent. It feels like we are simply not qualified. We're not experienced enough. We're not capable enough, we're not wise enough to contend with every single conceivable outcome. Now, I don't even know if that's a question of wisdom and experience. Actually, it feels to me like a question of overt complexity. And when we try to deal with all eventualities, everything, everywhere, all at once, right, what we end up with is, like I said, being corralled into a corner, and then suddenly we feel like we're fighting for our life. Suddenly, the means justify the ends. If the ends is our ability to be able to breathe again. It's really interesting. I've just seen written down here, concentration camp of the mind. Seems to fit very nicely with the energy of the Eight of Swords, don't you think? If Aquarius season's going to give us anything, it's going to give us complexity. It's going to give us some really out there fucking stuff. It's going to give us some shit that's paradoxical. Particularly if it is flipping our ethics up on its side, when suddenly something that we thought was completely unacceptable seems to be acceptable. Do any of us have a roadmap to get through 2026? No, I don't think so. At this point, it's about leaning into what you have at your disposal, and that is a very small stick with a very small bag hanging off the back of it. We're not carrying forward any of the emotional baggage, or at least we're trying not to. You've got to remember that this is not a one-time deal. This is something you're going to have to check in with yourself daily, possibly hourly, depending on how exposed to all of this stuff you are, and how much complexity there is going on in your own life right now. Because I was saying with the... look at this here, to there, every single one of those is a conversation going on between your personal planets. Now, if we don't think that, walking into a room where there were 27 conversations going on simultaneously would be quite difficult to tune into. Of course it would. I feel like on some levels this is a check-in week with ourselves, as much as anything else, to say, are my coping mechanisms working? Do they need tweaking? Do I need to double down on some of the things that I've been doing but only doing kind of loosely? Do I need to check with myself that I'm dealing with facts and I'm dealing with things that are right in front of me? Or am I allowing my nervous system to be, spooled up, expanded in the face of things that are not right here, right now? Now, for some of you, and I hope that this isn't true, but I do feel like it's going to be true for some of you, some of those problems are right in your backyard. Some of those problems are right here, right now. But the same applies. But don't know if you've ever read anything by Robert Greene. There was something of his that I read the other day. I think it comes from the laws of human nature. When you are scared, you are likely to overstate the threat that you are in, or overstate the size of your problems, right? 100%. You think about the energy of the fool as a child. When children are little and they have some sort of problem, like it's literally the end of the fucking world, right? Anybody who's had kids will know what that's like. If you have autistic kids like me as well, right? The disappearance of the cup, the only cup that the child will drink liquid from, disappearing, actually is kind of the end of the world, because that child is not going to have a sip of anything until that cup is fucking found, right? And I can give you many, many, many other examples besides, but right, emotional regulation is something that comes with experience. Now, although we may be as children in the face of what's going on here, we've got enough tools to be able to tell the difference between that which we know as fact, that which we can see with our own eyes, that which is here in front of us, and those things that are not. But I feel like everything that's happening at the moment is designed to take you away from that, right? To stop you. I know I shit on about this all the time. I really do know that I do that. And to some extent, I feel like I'm repeating myself. But I think there are some things that bear repeating. And I've been banging this drum for probably 6.5 fucking years now. I think since I started the channel, I've been talking about, don't let anybody harvest your attention. It's the most precious resource that you have. And somebody in the community, sorry, I forget who it was, posted a video from Chase Hughes. It was predictions for 2026. I have to tell you, I am utterly convinced that Chase Hughes will turn out to be, inadvertently, a better astrologer than most of the astrologers that are in the space at the moment with what he said in that video. Or was it 8 predictions for 2026? Do you know what a huge one was? It was loneliness. I think it really stabbed a stick into people in 2020, right? But I think the circumstances that created that are still very much at play. And in a slightly abstract and more kind of, pulled back sort of view, I think all we're really starting to see is how difficult it is to have meaningful relationships with people when you don't show up as real yourself. And Aquarius demands authenticity. I think it's something that all the fixed signs do, actually. Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. They all want truth. They all want authenticity. They all want real things. They don't want to labour under illusions. Why? Because they've got some hard work to do to keep everything going, right? They're literally carrying the season. They can't do their job if they're working with illusion and fantasy. It's not for them to be visionary. It's for them to hold reality up, right? So I think what's really starting off here, and I know I'm going around in kind of like weird little like odd directions, but it's the way that my mind's working on this one, right? So bear with me. I think we're going to see, starting this week, the need for the real to start to emerge. We have the star, which speaks of hope, it speaks of healing, but it speaks truly of authenticity and connection to me. It's always spoken about connection to me. And then we have the Ace of Wands. Now, there are questions that come with the Ace of Wands, and not least is, what can I do differently? I remember the Wands suit is all about action, behaviour, activity, experience. And when we've got an ace showing up, and to some lesser extent we also have the Three of Wands performing a similar but more muted function, like how can I do things differently? How can I show up differently? How can I show up more real? Because fire is real, and you better believe the signature of this year is fire. It's all fire. So how can I connect with people in a more real sense? I mean, this could be quite literal. How can I get off the fucking computer and actually go talk to people, go observe their body language, right? Sit in their energy. How can I start being more real, right? How can I start modeling that level of realness for other people? But in a less obvious and less, whatever sense, we're going to be walking through the fire over and over and over again this year. We have to remain flexible, we have to remain adaptive, we have to remain responsive. And a lot of that is going to be predicated on the connections that we have, the attention that we pay to the connections that we have. How do we make those more real? How do we expand those so that the things that are trying to rob your attention, trying to rob your emotional stability and your emotional regulation and all that kind of thing, how can we turn the volume down on those? I feel like the weeks that we've spent in Capricorn season have been about becoming increasingly solid in what we are. It's really interesting. So took my stepdaughter back to the airport yesterday, which is like a 7-hour round trip. And on the way back, Massage was educating me on music. And Deadmau5 came on. City in Florida. If you haven't heard that tune, you should go listen to it. My partner said, he's got fire in him somewhere. I know he has. I can fucking feel it. I can hear it. And I was like, hold on. I will look him up. Deadmau5 is a double Capricorn with an Aries ascendant. And what was interesting was I could hear the fire. I could work it out. But you know what? Like that absolute solid, tight structure was Capricorn as fuck. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the tune because it's incredible. And it's something that I like to do as well, actually, when I come across musicians or singers or whatever. I'm like, where are they embodying that energy, right? Capricorn season has given us some time to adapt to a new way of being. But it's time to adapt to the idea that we're going to be adapting, and what can we be strong with? Where is that internal structure that allows us to pivot when it's necessary? To turn away from the unreal in favour of the real, in favour of the connected. In a time where a lot of people, normal people, are afraid to speak, I think this is time to start having conversations and showing up. Quite literally, go around to somebody's house and have a fucking cup of coffee and talk to them. We need to start pulling away the echo chambers. Because as things get more complex, those simple yet solid structures that we have within are going to be the thing that allow us to keep moving through, you know? Right. Didn't realise I've been burbling on for quite so long, sorry. I'm going to go now. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.